Thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely.
Now, for anyone who watches the show regularly, you're familiar with Dr. K. She is wonderful and she always has useful advice for us. And I know a lot of people are going through a lot of stress, a lot of internal controversy with this hashtag Black Lives Matter, especially with the death of George Floyd and many other people that have lost their lives due to social injustice. Tell me, how do we begin to have a conversation with ourselves about where we stand and how we react? How do we control how we react to what we're seeing on social media and on the news?
So, the number one thing that we all have to do is to acknowledge our own biases. So, be able to read and educate yourself and see how you feel about certain things. We all have biases. We all have preconceived notions about different groups of people. And if you just try to ignore it and just say, like, no, I'm not racist, period, I don't have any of those thoughts, then they can kind of creep up in other ways. And so
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge your biases and try to figure out why you feel that way and have meaningful conversations. They don't just have to be with people of a different color skin than you. It could be having a
Mm-hmm.
conversation with people from different backgrounds, maybe people who grew up on a different side of town,
Mm-hmm.
anybody. What are just having a conversation, asking what it's like to be who they are and different situations. Educate yourself. It's the best way to make a difference.
Definitely. And I think that many of us find ourselves, okay, maybe we're trying to educate ourselves, but we're on social media, we click our Facebook page and we see all of this controversy of people going back and forth with their different opinions. That leads to stress that carries into our professional lives, our lives at home. How do we manage that?
So everybody needs social media breaks. I know I've said that before,
Yes.
but also if you are feeling anger, grief, right now everybody's experiencing a profound grief over what is happening in the nation. No matter what side you were on, people are
Mm-hmm.
feeling this. And being able to understand what it is like to be Black in America today and understanding what it's like for people who are different, who are facing these types of injustices. And talking about it. Like, we need to talk about it, write about it, whatever it is that is your way to express yourself. We all need to be able to express ourselves, no matter who you are.
Correct. And, I'd love, before we started this interview, we got a good little talk in, and you mentioned something about doing something. We all feel inclined to do something, but not all of us are in a position to go out and engage in a protest or participate in other ways besides social media, but we all want to do more. How can we do more? You mentioned something that you're doing with your children to teach them and pass on.
Yes. So I can't go to the protest, my two little toddlers. That'd be crazy in any time, but especially during COVID and everything happening. I passed by and actually parked across the street from one of the protests and talked to my 3-year-old about what was happening in the most honest ways I could. And he kept asking me, but mommy, why are you crying? And I had to explain to him, I'm like gonna cry just talking about it right now. I had to explain to him how some people get treated different because of the color of their skin.
Mhm.
And when he said why, it was very hard for me to explain that. And I'm a counselor. I've been educated in early childhood development, and it's still tough. It's still tough to figure out the words. So I got online and I found a bunch of resources of books. So I bought children's books about racism and injustices that are very blatant way, so reading them, it helps to kind of answer their questions in a very delicate way, because none of us, I don't care who you are, what your background is, it's a tough conversation to have with people. And
Mhm.
talking with little kids about it is going to help them treat people fair when they grow up. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Absolutely. Well, and it's one of those things, the fact that he's completely oblivious to what racism even is just goes to show that it is something that many people are conditioned, many people are taught to live by, and it isn't how it should be. We are all created equal, and that is how we want to raise our children to be, so that at some point in the future, in the very near future, hopefully we put an end to racism and we can all be connected as one, which it felt like we were just months ago when we were all at home and trying to stay connected through social media. So this topic absolutely could go on. Unfortunately, we're out of time, Kate, but I hope that we can visit with you again very soon to discuss this in more detail. If any of our viewers have more information or more questions that they'd like to learn about, we'd be happy to address some of those in our next conversation. But thank you so much for your time, Kate.
Absolutely. Anytime.